Welcome to this lesson on the policy dimensions of sustainable consumption and production. I am Alice Kaudia. I serve as the Environment Secretary in the Ministry of Environment and Natural Resources in the Republic of Kenya. It's very important to develop, mainstream, and implement sustainable consumption and production policies in Africa, particularly in programs, because as a continent, Africa continues to rely very heavily on natural resources to support its development, growth, industrialization, as well as sustenance of livelihoods. And this is happening, and this need is happening against a background of a growing population that is threatening to outstrip the available natural resources. And in addition, there's a growing middle class with the heavy or high-end consumption attitude and behavior. So we really have to infuse principles and practices of SCP in our programs in Africa. Let me give some examples here. Now, in some of the African countries, let's say in West Africa, we have this organic cotton initiative, which is supporting the idea that we should ensure that whatever cotton we produce does not depend on heavy application of pesticides, chemicals, and so on that are detrimental to the environment. We also have very good examples of waste management initiatives, particularly the aspect of extended producer responsibility. I find this very useful in the sense that it can promote responsibility of producers of goods and services to accommodate in the design of their products the aspects that will support easy and effective disposal of waste at the end of the product life. So across the continuum of consumption and production, we find that many countries in Africa are making very deliberate policy efforts to ensure that sustainable consumption and production is part of the programs that are implemented. There are several tools that can be applied by governments to support the actions on sustainable consumption and production. I would want to classify them into 4 areas. The first one is I'll call governance tools. The governance tools include policy tools, include regulations, include institutional arrangements that ensure that sustainable consumption and production is part of policies and programs. We find in Africa many countries have set up national environment management authorities that are the anchor institutions to promote sustainable consumption and production. The other segment of tools that I would bring on board is regulatory tools. And here we have tax regimes that support SCP. For example, in Kenya, we have the specific example of a requirement by the energy regulations that any units that consume less than 1,000 liters, more than 1,000 liters of water per day should install solar water heating systems. And to enable this to happen, there was a tax waiver, duty waiver on such equipment. In the environment sector, payment for ecosystem services is another example that we can use as a mechanism that is promoting a scaling up of SCP. Another tool that is useful is market mechanism, what I define as market mechanism. And the example we have here is that of Africa Eco-Labeling Mechanism, which had a high-level political support, having been a decision of the African Ministerial Conference of Environment. So there are very, very many tools that are in place which can support SCP, as I have enumerated, right from governance, that is policies, laws, regulations, and institutions, ecological appreciation of organic production, and so on. The challenges and success factors of integrating SCP into policies and programs in Africa are not so many, but let me enumerate a few. First is limited understanding of what does sustainable consumption and production entail. So getting to understand the value of the concept in terms of economic value, ecological value, and social value, that needs to be in place. But the success factors which I see strongly, one is the political support. There is need for political support for SCP to be scaled up. We also need to ensure there is adequate research. That is also a success factor which I think is very, very important. I think moving forward, the success of SCP requires a very, very strong partnership and collaboration between North and South and between South and South. Sharing experiences, sharing successes, sharing failures on where we have tried and it has not worked is very, very important so that we can draw lessons and apply the lessons in improving the application and scaling up of SCP practices. Thank you very much. I do look forward to seeing many of you learners being the champions of SCP in Africa, because sustainable consumption and production really is the basis of sustainable development, and it will enable Africa to deliver on the 2030 agenda.